Well, it is great to be with you on a Saturday morning. Maybe we tap into a new market of 49ers fans with an unusually timed show, but I am hopping on a plane a little bit later this afternoon. So I figured that maybe a show, maybe two shows of 49ers content. And this is going to be some mega 49ers content, really preparing you for OTAs. I figured that might be the play. So go ahead and grab your coffee, grab your breakfast sandwiches, your acai bowls, your omelets, whatever you want, and enjoy the show because we're about to go into 49ers 53-man roster projection ahead of OTAs to really give you an idea of the lay of the land. This is going to be focused on the offensive side of the football. We'll do another video for the defensive side of the football. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the notification bell so you are also there for the defensive show whenever that comes. Maybe a little bit later this morning if I have some time. Maybe a little bit later this weekend if I don't. Those of you who are familiar with the show, you know that we like to visualize things. Here is the 49ers 53-man roster projection. This is a living, breathing document online. If you want to follow along in real time, you can go to the chat section where I've just posted the link to the Google spreadsheet. But we're going to be focusing on the top half today, which I am highlighting right now. This is offense. You see my mouse to the left side of this vertical dividing line. Those are the players on the inside of the 53-man projection. To the right, those are the players currently on the outside. Obviously, there's a lot of work to go. OTAs begin this week. I'm going to be out on the practice field on Tuesday. I cannot wait to see everyone in action. Obviously, Brock Purdy will not be in action, but all the rookies especially. They're going to be mixed with the veterans on an 11-on-11 practice field for the first time. And of course, I assume that all eyes are going to be on Trey Lance and Sam Darnold as they begin to duke it out at that quarterback position. So we're going to go through this position by position. I'm going to be visualizing some of the nuance through the actual depth chart. Maybe we reorder some guys. I'll take a peek at the comment section every once in a while. Maybe after every single position group, I'll take a peek at the comment section. So go ahead, leave your questions in there. If you're lucky, I'll get to it. I'm not going to make this a huge Q&A, but good questions will be answered. Just make sure your question is about the position group that we are discussing at the time. And we're going to start with the quarterback position. I made a spelling error down there, so let me fix that really quickly. Implications has 3 eyes, not just 2. Typo is corrected, and here we go. The different implications of a Purdy takeover, of a Lance takeover, or a Darnold takeover, because obviously all 3 are possible. And then Brandon Allen is also on the depth chart at the 49ers quarterback position. By the way, they have 90 players right now that count against the roster limit. That is the limit, 90. 91 technically, but Alfredo Gutierrez, the offensive lineman down here, is an international exception once again, so he doesn't count toward that 90-man total. But for counting against the 90-man total in the quarterback room, you will see the pink shade for Brock Purdy. That means that he is currently hurt and unavailable. Now, my projection involves, as there's a counter on this spreadsheet, and you'll see that there are 54 spots taken on the 53-man roster down here. And that is because I have Brock Purdy. I don't know where to classify him right now. He's got to count against the 90-man. I don't know if he's going to make the initial 53-man just because of the injury, or if he's going to open the season on PUP, physically unable to perform. We'll know a little bit more probably in a couple weeks once Purdy starts throwing again in June. But either way, I took the liberty of assuming that Brock Purdy starts the season on PUP. I mean, it's just for assumption's sake at this point. I'm not predicting it's going to happen. It's just something that we need to assume to make sense of the roster right now. So for the time being, it's Lance, it's Darnold, and it's Brandon Allen at that quarterback position. We should just cross the Purdy bridge once we have more information. We should just assume for the time being he's going to be out for the full 6 months, maybe a little bit more, and work with what the 49ers are going to have on the practice field. That's how the team is approaching this. And, for that, let's look at the potential ramifications of takeovers from all 3 of these quarterbacks. Obviously, Purdy was the starter to end last season. He seems to be the leader in the clubhouse now whenever he's healthy, just based on track record. That'd all be great for the 49ers because Purdy is on a cheap rookie deal, still has 3 years left. That'd make the 49ers really cost efficient at the quarterback position, assuming he stayed healthy and effective for the next 3 seasons. That'd all be great. But how about Trey Lance? Well, Lance, I mean, the situation is a little bit more complicated with Trey Lance contractually because he's already 2 years in or entering his 3rd year of his rookie deal. So there are only 2 more cost-controlled seasons left for Trey Lance, at which point this next offseason, the 49ers can extend Lance and pick up the 5th-year option, but that would be pricier for a quarterback. And then after that, obviously, he would need a new contract. So Lance is nowhere near as financially efficient as Brock Purdy for the 49ers, but he still is on a rookie contract. Whereas the third option, Sam Darnold, if you see Darnold right here, I have him as depth 2 right now. If you see him win out and you see him lead the 49ers on a run and he suddenly becomes the guy, well, in that case, Darnold would probably earn a lot of his incentive money. Remember, the baseline of his deal is only worth about $5 million, but it could be worth up to $11 million or maybe even a little bit more. A lot of those incentives are based on playing time and winning. Well, then you'd owe Darnold more money this season. It would take a bigger bite out of your cap space if he earns those incentives. And then since he's only on a 1-year deal, if he ends up being your guy and you fall in love with Sam Darnold and you're not sure about Purdy or Lance, well, then he'd be up for a big new contract after this season. So from a financial perspective, the most efficient deal is Brock Purdy's, at least amongst the contenders. I get it. Brandon Allen's also in the room, but he's only on a 1-year minimum deal. So that's the way that it looks for the 49ers right now. That's all I can tell you. I could only tell you what the outcome would be in the big picture for each of these 3 quarterbacks. I'm of the opinion that they all can end up good. I think the 49ers actually think this. They all think that the 49ers think that due to their system and due to their coach, Kyle Shanahan, and the system being a team, that surrounds its quarterback with a lot of star players, the 49ers believe that all 3 of their top quarterback options can succeed, can develop into plus quarterbacks. And I don't think it's a preposterous thought from the 49ers. Brock Purdy's already done it out of spot 262 in the draft during his rookie season. Sam Darnold played well to close last year with Carolina. Who's to say that he won't be good with the 49ers with a better supporting cast and a better offensive coach who's really coveted him for some time? I mean, this goes back all the way to the 2018 draft and then the 2021 offseason when the 49ers considered trading for Sam Darnold. And Trey Lance, the 49ers obviously believe that he could become something with them because they spent so much draft capital to pick him up. So you have 2 number 3 picks and 1 number 262 pick, and ironically, it's the number 262 pick that's actually proven something really efficient in this league. So normally that'd be the hard domino to take care of, right? Now they're trying to take care of the 2 number 3 picks. And I think it's entirely possible that when all the smoke clears from all this uncertainty at the 49ers quarterback position, that they're going to have 3 competent QBs who might all be coveted by some team in the NFL based on what happens here in 2023. Now, it's also possible that only one of them pans out, or only 2 of them pan out, or none of them pan out. That's also a possibility, but I think it's on the lower probability end of the extreme. At the end of the day, the 49ers have 3 legitimate options to become an effective starter. Think of it as a game of darts. You have to try to hit as close to the bullseye as possible. It's going to be a lot easier and a lot higher chance of hitting as close to the bullseye as possible if you have 3 throws of the dart than just 1. So Brock Purdy is dart number 1. Trey Lance is dart number 2. Sam Darnold is dart number 3. It's also possible that all 3 hit near the bullseye. Probably not as likely that all 3 hit as it would be that 1 or 2 hits. But I think the 49ers do believe there is a legitimate chance of that. And think of it this way. How many other NFL teams can say that, right? How many other NFL teams can say, oh, we have 3 chances to hit the bullseye? There are teams with really established starting quarterbacks. You think the Kansas City Chiefs, they know they're going to hit the bullseye unless Mahomes gets hurt. That's great. In that case, you probably only need 1 and maybe just a competent backup in case Mahomes misses a few games. But that's not the norm around the National Football League. Most teams have middling quarterbacks, guys that you're not fully sure of, or bad quarterbacks that you better find a replacement for that guy. And in that case, you would love the options that the 49ers have. You would love the odds that the 49ers have especially within the infrastructure of the 49ers system, which can elevate the quarterback because you've got so many good weapons and obviously a good coach, a good play caller. You'd love the shot to have 3 dart throws at the wall to see if that bullseye can be approached with at least one of those 3. So that's how I look at the 49ers quarterback situation. It is a game of numbers. It's a business for the 49ers. If you don't have one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the league, this might be the best way to play it, right? Because it's hard to acquire one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the league. Mahomes is in one spot. Aaron Rodgers is in another spot. And, you could argue amongst yourselves who you think number 3 is, but Joe Burrow is in place. Josh Allen is in place. None of these guys are moving, right? Aaron Rodgers moved this offseason. It was an exceptional circumstance, and it would have been darn near impossible for the 49ers to acquire him. It would have been impossible for the 49ers to acquire him and maintain the strong roster that they have. So the 3 quarterbacks that they do have, they're costing them only about $15 million against the cap, and that's what allows the 49ers to field this. And by this, I mean a really damn deep and strong roster. It is impressive, and I think that's something that we're going to see as we go through the rest of these positions. Now, I promised I would stop and answer some questions in between each position group. So the best QB question, I'm going to put you up on the screen. Type it up right now if you haven't put it there. Right now I see some statements. Here from Stoner Fool, we have 3 top dog quarterbacks. Sacktown Izzy says Trey Lance week 1 until the team tells me different. The 49ers haven't said anything, but I respect the opinion. Pup is not 8 weeks. Pup is 4 weeks to begin the season. Lee points out that Purdy is hurt, Lance is raw and needs reps. Darnold has 56 unimpressive starts, all question marks. So there have been impressive starts amongst the 56 for Darnold. It's just been more unimpressive than impressive. And one thing about Sam Darnold is that the impressive ones have come more recently, right? So again, that stretch to close the season was solid from Sam Darnold, and it was a big part of why the 49ers signed him. Now the question is, can he port that into something with the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan? All right, any questions? David C. says the 49ers need Darnold. Well, here's the thing, and everybody talking about a Trey Lance trade all offseason. The 49ers could have used Trey Lance last year healthy. It's a good thing that they didn't trade him earlier last year, right? You have to look at this quarterback position in terms of numbers if you're the 49ers. You can't look at it in terms of tradable commodities unless, of course, every man has his price. That's the thing. Unless they're blown away by an offer that helps them maybe even replenish the numbers in the quarterback room. But right now, numbers are wealth in the QB room for the 49ers. Can Trey end up being a practice quarterback? Well, everybody has got to be a practice quarterback. Everybody has to deliver in practice. Are you talking about the practice squad? Because no, to put somebody on the practice squad, you'd have to cut him, and you'd have to field the dead money and then re-sign him to the practice squad. And some other team would pick him up before then to see if he could be a project that could work for them. Trey can end up being a nice backup for the 49ers if Purdy or Darnold wins the competition. But right now, Trey Lance is still an asset. He might be at the lowest of his value at the NFL level so far because his first 2 seasons have been scuttled by injury, but he remains an asset for the 49ers, and a backup starter position, all of that is yet to be determined. Okay, let's move on to the next position. Let's move on to running back, and I'm going to pop the roster back open up onto the screen. So running back, that's going to be up here. Highlighting it. I know it's a nice horizontal section. Everybody knows that Christian McCaffrey is on top of this position group. My biggest question, aside from the health of Elijah Mitchell, which is very, very obviously something that the 49ers would benefit from if they do finally get that this year in year 3 for the 2021 6th-round draft pick. My biggest question is Jordan Mason. I mean, Mason came in as the finisher, the closer. I like to call him the closer. I think Mason preferred the finisher last year. Fans were clamoring for a bigger role for Jordan Mason. He didn't quite get it. He was, the 49ers really like the fresh legs coming in at the end of the game, but has enough trust develop between Mason, Kyle Shanahan, and the rest of the 49ers team for him to be a true number two? Last year when Mitchell was healthy, Christian McCaffrey and Mitchell split a lot of the load, right? It was a good way to keep McCaffrey's legs fresh. My question is, if Mitchell is unavailable or if McCaffrey's unavailable, do the 49ers trust Mason enough to be a number one or a number two, to be in that top two rotation? Because we know that's how Kyle Shanahan likes to divvy stuff up. He likes to have two primary backs, then he likes to have his third down back / his closer, which was Jordan Mason last season. So the bull in the China shop, that's what they call Jordan Mason. I'm really curious to see what that second year leap might look like. One guy that has to have a second year leap is Ty Davis Price, because he's got other guys knocking on the door of this roster. Now we're going to get a chance to see the undrafted free agents, Kalan LeBourne, Ronald Awatt, and to a different degree, Jack Coletto, who I should probably remove the linebacker designation from Jack Coletto. We'll just keep him as fullback right now. He might be a tight end too, but who knows? Anyway, LeBourne and Awatt, both of these guys can move. Both of these guys had impressive college tape, and we know that undrafted free agent running backs have made noise in the past for the 49ers. So these two guys are in there to pressure somebody like Ty Davis Price. And as we saw last season, the 49ers are not afraid to cut ties with a third round drafted running back in year two. They cut Trey Sermon last year before the season started. So is Ty Davis Price on the hot seat? Absolutely. This is too deep of a roster to give guys handouts for 2 years. And I get it. Davis Price, I thought, was running impressively last year until his high ankle sprain in week 2 against Seattle. So sometimes injuries can put you behind the 8 ball, but that doesn't change the fact that you are behind the 8 ball. And the way I see Ty Davis Price right now, he's got to run hard, he's got to run effectively, and he's got to deliver during this offseason program, and then obviously heading into training camp to make sure that he staves off some of the competition from the undrafted free agents. Now, they could always keep LeBourne and Awatt on the practice squad, and they probably will have to, because the running back position is one that's seen a lot of injuries in the past. So the 49ers want to have depth ready at, for the taking. It needs to be at the ready for the 49ers, because losing too many bodies at the running back position and not having a suitable replacement is a good way to throw a wrench in Kyle Shanahan's offense. All right, running back questions. I'm ready for running back questions. David C. Does Kyle Shanahan like a power running back, like a short yardage big back? Well, isn't that Jordan Mason? I think that's the comparative advantage of Jordan Mason. This is a guy that weighs 225 pounds. He's obviously heavier than Christian McCaffrey, obviously heavier than Elijah Mitchell. That's the comparative advantage of Mason. And, to a slightly lesser degree, Ty Davis Price, who's also a bull in the China shop. But Mason, the 49ers started moving to power at the running back position a couple years ago when they made the move to Trey Lance. And I actually think that was completely intentional, because the move to Lance signified the 49ers were going to run a lot more read option. That's part of what they liked about his game. To run the read option, you want to burn the opposition around the edges with your QB, but you want to soften them up the middle by bruising them with the running back position. So Shanahan, early in his tenure, had gone exclusively fast, smaller running backs, but he also liked them to be physical, because the 49ers have a big after contact focus. I think that led to a lot of injuries, because you had guys trying to play the duality of physical running and fast running. Raheem Mostert was a good example. Jeff Wilson was a good example. And, time after time, the 49ers just lost depth in their running back room because they all got hurt. So Shanahan said two things. He said around 2021, he said, okay, if we're going to move to more of a read option attack, I'm going to want bulkier running backs to run some inside zone. And two, this is probably a better way to keep some of these guys healthy. So we saw the move to 220 pounders in Ty Davis Price, another 220 plus pounder in Jordan Mason. So yeah, I think that Kyle Shanahan likes power running backs. I don't think he views it in terms of short yardage, though. That's a nice byproduct as being good at short yardage. But I think he views it in terms of defenses are getting smaller. Why don't we get bigger at running back? And why don't we run people over, right? And Jordan Mason did that last year. I think it's a great question about the evolution of the 49ers running back room. Could Ty Davis Price end up like Trey Sermon this season? That's what I just said. Absolutely. He's on the hot seat. And, maybe he'll respond better than Trey Sermon, and maybe he's a better back than Trey Sermon. I think injuries hurt TDP last year. Let's be very clear about that. And he has a chance to prove that that was the case, that he's ready for prime time this offseason. LeBourne is the next JaMychal Hasty. Well, the problem is that JaMychal Hasty couldn't make the 49ers roster there toward then. They got so deep at running back. I mean, he was a nice piece for this team in 2020, 2021, but this roster has gotten better and better over the years, so it's harder and harder to make, which puts a lot of pressure on the 49ers scouting department. All right, good questions. Time to move on to the receiver room. Here are the wideouts. Highlighted them. I have 6 making the 53-man roster in my projection. Ronnie Bell, right into the rotation. What do we think? 7th-round pick out of Michigan. Do you think that Ronnie Bell is going to make the 53-man out of the final round of the draft? And 2, do you think he's going to be right into that rotation for the 49ers? Now, he's probably the player that stood out the most in a positive way at rookie minicamp. Skied up to make a couple catches, seemed really confident in his route running. Now, mind you, all we could see at rookie minicamp was 7-on-7 action. They didn't have enough players to operate with a full pass rush. And even in 7-on-7 action, no pads. So actual contact wasn't there. But from what I saw, Bell runs good routes. He runs confident routes. He goes up and gets the football. And that matched the tape that I saw at Michigan. This guy made big catches at Michigan. Everybody says, he's a little smaller receiver. He might need to add some weight. A couple people even made the Dante Pettis comparison. It's like, no. This guy doesn't play like Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis nobody ever called Dante Pettis tough. Let's put it that way, okay? Dante Pettis was silky smooth, good route runner, good separator in college, punt returner, but tough was never a word assigned to Dante Pettis, and that ended up being the problem for the 49ers. They need tough receivers that can block, that can make those catches in traffic, that can, yak bros, right? After contact yardage is so important for the 49ers. So Ronnie Bell and Dante Pettis do not equate. I think that his calling card at Michigan was his toughness. Now, does he need to get a little bit stronger at the NFL level? Yes. That's what NFL weight rooms are for. And I think that Ronnie Bell's special teams capabilities, he was a good punt returner in college, that might help him make the 49ers 53-man roster. But if you look at the receiver room for the 49ers, you've obviously got Ayuk and Samuel and Juwan Jennings, your number 3. One of the battles that I'm really looking at is the speedster battle. I think that Kyle Shanahan really, really wants a burner in this room, especially if Lance is going to be the 49ers quarterback, because he wants to extend the field a little bit with Trey Lance's arm. So that's why they drafted Danny Gray, to be a burner. Remember the touchdown pass in the preseason from Lance to Gray? I think that was against the Packers last preseason. Well, you've got another burner. This is a veteran, a 30-year-old veteran in Chris Conley. So both Conley and Gray have great straight line speed. Who makes the roster? Well, it would be financially advantageous for Danny Gray to step up in his second season, because Conley is on a 1-year veteran contract. Gray is still under team control for 3 more seasons on a rookie deal. So if Danny Gray is going to step up, now would be the time. Because McLeod, veteran, of course, they're going to want him on the roster. He did a good job for them last year as a gadget weapon. Ronnie Bell can be kind of the backup McLeod to start, if you will, giving the 49ers special teams versatility and potentially even some slot versatility on top of Juwan Jennings, who's such a dog as a blocker. And then Danny Gray, he could really carve out a niche as the 49ers speed guy. But there is going to be pressure behind him from somebody like Chris Conley, right? And then you have your depth. Then you have these guys over here, Willie Snead, the veteran, who played some important special team snaps for the 49ers last year when they had injuries. You've got your developmental projects, Isaiah Winstead, the receiver who went viral on social media after nobody drafted him. Tay Martin was on the practice squad last year. Shea Wyatt, undrafted free agent. Daz Newsome. And yeah, that's it. Daz Newsome was on the practice squad last year. He's a player that's excited some people. So this is just, they're working with a lot of bodies, right? They're working with 12 bodies in the receiver room. These guys are all chomping at the bit in case there are injuries or somebody slips up here. But for me, the favorites to make the 53-man are these 6. Ayuk, Samuel, Jennings, Danny Gray, and Ray McLeod. All right, time for some questions at the receiver room. 187 thinks that Isaiah Winstead is better. Better than who? David C. thinks that Dante Pettis disappointed the 49ers. Of course he did. And then Bell beat the 49ers with a really lucky play in week 1 last year. That, Dante Pettis might have Dante Pettis, you could argue that Dante Pettis kept the 49ers from winning a Super Bowl last year. Because if they got one more win, then they have the 1 seed. They don't have to go to Philly. You could play this logical progression game a long way, but that loss in Chicago ended up really, really hurting the 49ers. What's up with Jacour Pearson? He's not on the team. He was a tryout. I know that video went viral of him cooking one of the DBs of the 49ers rookie minicamp. I'm not sure which corner that was. I wasn't able to spot the number, but they didn't sign him. So, maybe they bring him back at some point. I wouldn't look too much into video of somebody winning a one-on-one battle rookie minicamp. It's not like he's going against Charvarius Ward. It's not like he's going against Diamond Lenore. He's going against other tryout players or rookies that are, on an NFL field for the first time. Kyle Shanahan saw separation ability in Dante Pettis' game, and he had that. The problem is that Dante Pettis ran into a couple issues. The 49ers as a team and as a collective identity offensively were evolving right around the time that Dante Pettis was trying to work his way into the mix. Remember, Pettis was actually good over the last 8 games of 2018. And then 19 hit. That's when he really started struggling. And 19 saw Jimmy Garoppolo return. And the 49ers really, really take aim at being this physical, hard-nosed offense. Receivers had a block, yards after the catch. Pettis just didn't fit that. So as the 49ers really discovered their identity in that 2019 season, ended up going to the Super Bowl, that's when Pettis fell out of favor because he was just more of a separator, a finesse receiver than a truly tough receiver. So I think you could blame the 49ers. You could blame a lack of vision with that draft pick. They usually don't make those kind of mistakes in the draft, right? Normally they pick guys that really fit the vision of what they're trying to do. Dante Pettis never quite fit that. And then, Emmanuel Sanders definitely fit that vision as a veteran. He was a tough receiver for the 49ers. I remember that game he played against Seattle. He did have to leave the game, but he made a few big catches on Monday Night Football with badly bruised ribs, big first down catches as the 49ers took that lead. Why don't we talk a couple more questions about the receiver room, at least one, and then we'll move on to the next position group. Bobby asked, no, we love to talk a lot about how great the team is, but in your opinion, what are the biggest weaknesses on offense and defense? Well, I'm talking about offense today in this show, so we'll talk about offense here. A potential weakness, offensive line. I think, and I'm going to get to this in a little bit, I think they still need to prove themselves at right tackle and depth-wise on the offensive line. Quarterback, one of those darts that I talk about, a QB has got to hit near the bullseye. Tight end 2, is Braden Willis the answer? I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Or is Cameron Latu the answer? They need to improve at tight end 2. So, those are just 3 concerns. At the end of the day, this was the most efficient team in football from week 8 onward last year. From the Christian McCaffrey acquisition onward, these guys were dominant. They only lost when they ran out of quarterbacks against the Eagles. So there are going to be a whole lot more good things to say about the 49ers than bad things to say about the 49ers. The people that are sitting there trying to find bad stuff to say all the time, it's fake, it's contrived, they're looking for stuff because it probably increases engagement, gets you likes, whatever. But let's just look at the reality of the situation. Shanahan and Lynch took over a terrible team in 2017. Now the team's been to 2 straight NFC title games, and the team consistently has the deepest, if not the deepest, one of the deepest rosters in all of football. And if those are the situations, you're obviously going to criticize where you need to criticize. But if you're fair, if you're honest, if you're truthful, there's going to be a lot more good than there is bad. All right. Any more receiver questions? I guess no more receiver questions. So we're going to move on to, I think, tight ends. Yeah. Why don't we do tight ends? This is going to be good. I want to get the Braden Willis article up here as we move on to tight ends. Since Braden Willis, you could see him down there on the text title. Here you go. This came out yesterday. This is my piece on The 49ers seventh round draft pick, exploring Braden Willis's serendipitous 49ers connection found in Oklahoma, of all places. Braden Willis's tight ends coach for the Sooners is this guy, Joe John Finley. Joe John Finley played in 2008 and 2009 for the 49ers practice squad. So he's teammates with Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker. 49ers tight ends coach at the time was Pete Hainer. Pete Hainer taught Joe John Finley everything he knows about the tight end position. Finley then became a coach, and then Finley developed this guy, Braden Willis, who's now with the 49ers. Willis can play tight end. He can play fullback. He could play H-back. He could play slot receiver. He can play outside wide receiver. He could play quarterback. He was a high school quarterback, threw a touchdown pass, 24-yarder. It wasn't just a short toss for Oklahoma last year. Really, really intriguing piece, Braden Willis is. So if you want to see this article, it's an interview with Joe John Finley about bringing everything full circle. One thing that really stood out to me, he said, Joe John Finley, this guy, told me that he shows a ton of George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk teach tape to Braden Willis and his tight ends. And, to me, that's really, really interesting, especially the Kyle Juszczyk note, because it highlights the versatility that Joe John Finley tries to develop with the Oklahoma tight ends. And if that versatility is a thing that can be ported to the NFL level, then Braden Willis is a candidate to help relieve Kyle Juszczyk at fullback as well. And he's definitely a candidate for Kyle Shanahan's positionless skill position offense. Now, the 49ers double dipped at tight end, right? You see the two rookies right here highlighted in yellow. Cameron Latu into the third round, Braden Willis in the seventh. Now, funny, ironic, the metrics on Braden Willis coming out of college, the seventh rounder, are a whole lot better than Cameron Latu's, the third rounder. The explanation for that is the 49ers believe that Latu, who switched positions a couple years ago at Alabama from defensive end to tight end, they believe that Latu still has a lot more potential for improvement. So they implicitly think that Latu's ceiling is higher than that of Braden Willis. But, boy, Braden Willis was a monster at Oklahoma. And that's why I wrote the piece. That's why I wrote the article. It was really, really interesting to get his coach's take on everything, because Willis, the 49ers research and development department, they actually had him as the top tackle breaking tight end in the entire draft class. They had him rated as better than Brenton Strange out of Penn State, who went in the second round to the Jaguars. They had him rated as a better inline blocking tight end. Braden Willis puts people on their ass when he's blocking. I mean, he is a polished blocker. Cam Latu is a better blocker than people give him credit for. He's got good blocking agility, and I think he still has a lot to develop in that regard. But both of these new tight ends can block, and because of that, on the roster projection, I have both of these guys making the 53-man roster over Dwelly, over Fumagalli, not over Werner. I think they take four tight ends. I think it's Kittle, Werner, Willis, and Latu. But I think that the 49ers are finally in position to supplement George Kittle. Werner hasn't quite done the job yet. They want to upgrade there. It's going to take a while, though. You're going to have to develop both of these guys. But I do think that Willis might be a little bit ahead of Latu right now as far as 53-man roster capability. The good news is they can take four of them. But if this team can successfully supplement George Kittle with a tight end who can block, who can go out on option routes, who can add some complexity to their pass game, this offense can take yet another step forward, because the personnel formations that you run are going to be diversified to another level. Right now, there's already a lot of challenge in covering the 49ers, because you've got Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. You've got Ayuk. You've got Deebo Samuel lined up all over the formation. You have Juszczyk leaking out. You have Jawan Jennings coming out of the slot. Who knows where Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray are going to fit in? I mean, it could be a headache, and it is a headache for opposing defensive coordinators. Now, toss in two tight end packages to prepare for. Because let's be honest, the receiving threats of Charlie Werner and Ross Dwelly aren't great. The 49ers can up those receiving threats, and sometimes you can up the receiving threats by upping the blocking threat. So since Braden Willis can put people on their ass, well, that makes defenses account for his blocking ability in the run game, and boom, you hit them with the play action. Braden Willis runs out on a pass pattern. So that's how run and pass are tied together, especially at a position like tight end, which is meant to sell one but do the other. And if they can get two of those guys and one to complement George Kittle, that's one of the things that can take this 49ers offense to the third level. So that's how I see the tight end position. If you have any questions about it, let me answer them right now. Tight end questions. Only tight end questions. I'm going position by position with the 49ers offense. I thought this position would really work and develop more curiosity out of you. Because this is we talk about weaknesses in the 49ers offense that they've been looking for tight end two for a long time. Go back to Jordan Reed in 2020. Dwelly has signed 6 one-year deals with the 49ers. They obviously don't think that he's the long-term answer, but they keep on having to resort to him. They drafted Charlie Werner. A guy like Tyler Kroft was on the team for 1 year last year. But this year they double dipped. They thought this was an extremely deep tight end class. They only had picks from the 3rd to the 7th rounds, and they used a 3rd rounder and a 7th rounder on a tight end. Who has more upside, Latu or Willis? Well, the 49ers believe that Cameron Latu has more upside. That's why they drafted him in the 3rd round and Willis in the 7th. I think they might be right. I think Willis might be more ready to go now with his yak ability. He told me he would run a 4.6. His hamstring was too sore to run at Oklahoma's pro day. But if he runs a 4.6, oh God, this guy's ready to go. Latu, meanwhile, the metrics weren't impressive on Cameron Latu, but he's a football player. And I saw him in person. He moves well out there. He's fluid. He looks like a natural at that tight end position, but he still is, I think, learning some of the complexities of it. And I'm waiting for Steve Sarkisian to call me back, the Texas coach who actually was in charge of the positional transformation of Cameron Latu because he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Hopefully we get that on the books this week. I'm really curious about just how raw Cameron Latu was when he switched over from defensive end to tight end at Alabama. I think Sark will be able to answer that, and that will give us an idea and a little bit more of a vision of what the 49ers see here. Because the 49ers definitely think that there's meat still left on the bone for Cameron Latu. That's why they picked him in the 3rd round. Now, a lot of people disagreed with the pick. A lot of people thought he might be there later. In my mock draft, I predicted the 49ers would pick Cameron Latu, but I predicted it in the 5th round. I didn't predict it in the 3rd. I thought that might have been an overdraft. It's the only real head scratcher when you look at it based on the metrics, right? But we'll see. Maybe the 49ers had intel that somebody else thought the same way they did, and they really wanted this guy. It's why we could never definitively judge this until they actually take the field, play, and develop. Well, if Latu reminds you of Jordan Reed, then that's going to be good for the 49ers. Jordan Reed was a great player. It was injuries that prevented him from really contributing at a significant level with the 49ers. Yeah, I'm sure that George Kittle is going to invite his teammates to tight end U. Reed was athletic even after the injuries. The problem was he just kept on getting hurt. He made some great plays for the 49ers. An awesome catch in New Orleans. It's just that he hardly played. They never got to see that 2 tight end system in action. Okay, here we go. Oh, Jalen Hurd. Somebody mentioned Jalen Hurd. That's crazy. Let's move on. Offensive line. So that means we're moving to this. A lot of players to talk about here. Will any one of the projects make a move? And by that, I mean these guys. They're on the outside looking in of the 53-man roster. Leroy Watson, tight end in college, turned swing tackle candidate who's added some weight. Leroy's over 300 pounds now. Jason Poe, Keith Ishmael. Jason Poe, I could talk about all these guys. Jason Poe, really intriguing, built like a bowling ball, super athletic, but the arms are shorter than you'd like at the NFL level. This is a big second year for him. Can he force his way onto the roster as one of the backup guards? Keith Ishmael, you look at him. He's a center. The Keith Ishmael story is fascinating. The 49ers, when they traded for Trent Williams, they sent a 3rd rounder and a 5th rounder to Washington in that trade, right? Great price for Trent Williams, by the way. Washington turned around and used that 5th rounder to draft Keith Ishmael, who's actually from the Bay Area, born in Oakland, went to high school in San Francisco. Ishmael's a nice backup center, has actually started a couple games in the NFL for Washington. So talk about winning a trade. The 49ers pick up Trent Williams, and now they also have the player that was picked with a 5th rounder that they gave away in Keith Ishmael. And they got real depth now at center because Feliciano started all year at center last year for the New York Giants. Jake Brendel obviously re-signed with the 49ers. I mean, this is a position group that everybody was nervous about entering last offseason, and now they've got 3 guys who have started games and started fairly effectively, all 3 of them at the NFL level. Brendel was really good last year. Feliciano's solid, and Keith Ishmael is also a starting experience, and he wasn't bad with Washington, but he's on their practice squad. Developmental candidate is Corey Luciano, who is out of Danville, went to Washington out of Danville. So 4 centers now on the 49ers roster. Ilm Manning, really, really athletic guard out of Hawaii. So he's going to be knocking on the door. This puts pressure on guys like Nick Zakelj, who's got to have a big second-year jump. Supposedly, the 49ers strength coach is saying that he's been looking really good. At every single level, Zakelj has looked overwhelmed to begin and has rapidly improved, whether it be high school, college at Fordham, or the NFL last year was a rough start for him in training camp. Got a lot better over the course of camp. And John Lynch said the other day that Nick Zakelj has made big strides. So Zakelj, I mean, he's going to need that improvement because guys like Ilm Manning are to knock on the door. Guys like Joey Fisher, big $115,000 guarantee. He's going to be knocking on the door, right? And both of these guys, Manning and Fisher, are probably going to be guard candidates, although Fisher, there is a chance that he's kind of a 5-tool guy, can play tackle as well, played right tackle at small school Shepherd. But he's an exciting prospect because a lot of people thought Joey Fisher would be drafted. 49ers got him as an undrafted free agent. So is any one of these 6 guys, and Alfredo Gutierrez is the 7th international exception, can any one of them make a legitimate move to unseat what the 49ers have here? Because in the 53-man projection, it's obvious they got Trent Williams. They have Aaron Banks. He's going to be starting left guard. Brendel's the center. Burford, the likely starter at right guard, although Feliciano, the veteran, is going to compete for that. And McKivitz has the lead at right tackle. Don't forget about Jalen Moore. He's got a chance to pass McKivitz because McKivitz passed him before, but Moore's kind of the forgotten man. Consider Matt Pryor your swing tackle unless somebody like Leroy Watson steps up and surpasses him. Not likely given how raw Leroy Watson is, but he's got a shot to do it. Feliciano's your Brunskill from last year. But if you look at this and you talk about your Brunskill and positional adaptability, Joey Fisher's a guy that has a chance to be that for the 49ers. Maybe not this year, but moving into the future. And that's why the practice squad is so important to monitor because Trent Williams is not getting any younger. 35 years old. Ultimately, you're going to have to replace Trent Williams. And Colton McKivitz, it's a 1-year trial for him right now, right tackle. You lost Mike McGlinchey. You believe in Colton McKivitz, but he's only started a handful of games in his NFL career. So McKivitz has got to prove himself. And even if he does prove himself, again, Trent Williams is going to have to be replaced at some point because he will not play forever. The good news for the 49ers along the offensive line is that they have premium draft capital again next year. The long stretch of not having a first-round draft pick is over. So if you're trying to draft a premium tackle to replace McKivitz and maybe to ultimately replace Trent Williams, but upgrade over McKivitz in the shorter term, maybe next year's draft is when you do it. I think that's how the 49ers are looking at this long term. But for the time being, they need who's on their roster, and that's McKivitz starting and these guys who are on the depth, who aren't projected to make the 53-man, for the time being, they need these players to step up. You need to cross the bridge of 2023 to get to sweeter draft pastures of 2024 and beyond. So that is the 49ers offensive projection. I think those players are going to make the roster. I think Purdy might be on PUP. As far as quarterback pecking order, well, I gave you the hypothetical results. I don't want to talk about hypotheticals for more than that, though, because we're going to have to see Trey Lance. We're going to have to see if he could maintain that improved throwing motion moving forward. We're going to have to see what Sam Darnold looks like in the 49ers system. all of those things are going to determine what that pecking order might look like. And that's why OTAs coming up starting on Tuesday are so exciting. All right. I did promise that I would answer questions about every position group. So, offensive line, do you have any questions? James said that John Feliciano came to start. He doesn't care where. All right. So where does he start? Maybe right guard. That was the weakest starter last year for the 49ers. Feliciano has played some tackle, but I don't see him playing tackle for the 49ers. I view him as this year's Daniel Brunskill. And I don't think that he starts at center because then Jake Brendel can only play center for the 49ers. That's his specialty. So if Feliciano does start, he plays at right guard, or the 49ers can run a platoon between Spencer Burford and Feliciano like they did between Burford and Daniel Brunskill last season. 9 offensive linemen might seem high, but they take either 8 or 9 every year. If it's a matter of giving roster spots to guys who deserve them. So say that only 8 guys show that they deserve a 53-man roster spot in the offseason program and training camp, well, then they'll take only 8. If they say, oh, Nick Zakelj doesn't deserve one this year, or Jalen Moore doesn't deserve one this year, and then you take one of those 2 guys off. But I think that Feliciano is going to make the team for sure. Pryor, probably a little bit more of a question mark, but you'd still need a swing tackle. So maybe it's Pryor against Moore for the final spot if they take only 8. But 9 is not unheard of along the offensive line. The likelihood of Alfredo Gutierrez ever making an actual roster is really low. Alfredo Gutierrez has been the international exception player. It's a developmental guy, great in the locker room, great for practice, but we just have to be realistic. Just listen to the way that they've described this situation. And it's been an awesome opportunity for him, but this is the NFL. It's not easy to crack a 53-man roster. I think the Nick Zakelj has slept on. Zakelj might be a future center candidate too. So far, he's only been working at guard, though. I don't see Zakelj being much of a tackle candidate. I think they're looking at him on the interior. I think Joey Fisher, out of the guys that are projected to play on the interior, but might have exterior capability, I think Joey Fisher, even though the arms are a little bit shorter, I think that he is the best candidate. All right, so let's take a look at this offense as a whole. Last year, the 49ers, the offensive DVOA last season was very good. It was number 1 after Christian McCaffrey showed up. You've maintained all of your skill position weapons, right? From McCaffrey to Mitchell to Juszczyk to Ayuk, Samuel, Jennings, Kittle. They're all back. Now it's a question of, can you develop enough quarterback health and stability to distribute the ball to those players? And can you maintain O-line improvement, which the 49ers saw last year, to make everything that I just talked about possible as far as distributing the football to the skill position players? And a lot of that's going to come down to Colton McKivitz, and then it's going to a right tackle replacing Mike McGlinchey. And a lot of that's going to depend on how the 49ers fortify the depth of their offensive line. Then you could start talking about bells and whistles. And bells and whistles are rookies making the team. Can you improve tight end 2 with Braden Willis and or Cameron Latu? Can you improve the receiving room with Ronnie Bell? The 49ers drafted in a targeted way. They wanted to make sure that whoever they drafted had a chance to not only make this team, but improve this team. And that's why you look at Ronnie Bell. That's why you look at Braden Willis. And that's why you look at Cameron Latu as potential contributors. The one guy that I wrote about most recently is this guy, Braden Willis. This came out yesterday. So go ahead and check this out. I'm going to put it in the comment section one more time. Just a cool story. Former 49er was his tight ends coach at Oklahoma. Burford does have the length to play offensive tackle. He was a good tackle at San Antonio, but the 49ers seem dead set on him at guard. And then we're going to see during OTAs, if there's going to be any funny business where they start to shift guys around, maybe we'd get our first clues of it on Tuesday, because a lot of people do want to see Burford at right tackle. I tell you what, though, that faith in Colton McKivitz from the 49ers does seem real. What is DVOA? DVOA is defense adjusted value over average. Let's open it up here on Football Outsiders. So I'm going to explain this, but first I want to help you visualize it. So just give me a quick second here. We'll pop it open on the screen. I've got to log in for this to work. All right, here we go. We're going to go to team DVOA from all of last season. And we'll pop it up on the screen. So Football Outsiders is a great site. So here's team DVOA. Here are the 49ers. As you can see, number 2 in the league. Total DVOA, 27.5% above average. They are number 6. They were number 6 offense, number 1 defense, number 15 special teams. So what DVOA is, defense adjusted value over average, is this is going to measure efficiency. It's going to be more sophisticated than just yards per game or points per game. Say that you have a 3rd and 6 and you pick up 4 yards. Well, that's a 4-yard gain. That's nice, but that's not worth as much as a 4-yard gain on 1st and 10, right? Because you're probably going to have to punt after your 3rd and 6 4-yard gain. But say that it's 3rd and 2 and you pick up 3. A 3-yard gain on 3rd and 2 is going to be worth more than a 3-yard gain on 1st and 10. So DVOA is going to take into account the nuances of situational football to give you an efficiency score above or below average. And it's also going to take into account the strength of the opposition that you're playing. It's going to adjust for quality of opponent. That's what makes it defense adjusted value over average. For offense, it would be offense adjusted, or for defenses, it'd be offenses adjusted value over average, because you would adjust for the offense that you're playing against. They just keep it DVOA to keep it simple. So we're not saying OVOA and DVOA. It's understood that you're measuring the quality of the opponent, and that flips whether you're on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. DVOA has proven to be more predictive of whether a team is going to win or lose a game than simple yardage or simple points per game. So the 49ers last year, number 2 DVOA in the league. We can filter DVOA by a week to see how good the 49ers were after they picked up Christian McCaffrey. So let's go 8 through the divisional championship game. We're not going to include the conference championship game because the 49ers didn't have a healthy quarterback in that game. So let's see how good the 49ers were in the post-McCaffrey era last year. Look at this. This is week 8 when McCaffrey started against the Rams all the way to the win against the Cowboys in the divisional round. That is a nice long stretch of 10 games at least, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, that's 13 games. Sorry. Wow. Oh, it was 10 games in the regular season. That's why. So anyway, the 49ers went on a rampage. Their DVOA was 52.9% above league average. Look at Kansas City over that same time, 30.5%. The 49ers were head and shoulders above everyone else. Offensive DVOA better than the Chiefs. Pass offense, way better than the Chiefs. That was under Garoppolo and Purdy with McCaffrey in there. Rushing offense, number 3 in the league. Remember, the 49ers started off below average before McCaffrey. Defense, number 1. Pass defense, number 4. Run defense, number 5. Special teams, number 5. I mean, the 49ers were an absolute juggernaut when you measure the efficiency stats after Christian McCaffrey came over. That's why people are so bullish on this 2023 season, because they were so good when everybody was healthy in that 2022 season. It all fell apart when the QBs got hurt. It came down to that. That's why Deebo Samuel seems bitter about it. They are bitter about it. Wouldn't you be bitter if you were this damn good? If you're this far ahead of the rest of the league, you're almost doubling up Philadelphia's DVOA. Wouldn't you be bitter if you were favored to win it all because of how strong you were statistically, and then your quarterbacks got hurt, all of them? That's why the 49ers are a little salty. It makes total sense. But they've got another shot to take a bite out of the apple this next season. So hopefully that explains DVOA. Thank you for being a great viewer. DVOA is one of the stats that does correlate. Yeah, we have to look at statistics smartly. Fantasy football has caused people to look at dumb stats like yardage and stuff like that. Yardage does not correlate. Advanced stats that take into situational football into effect do correlate. So that's why you have to look at those. Andrew wants to retire Jimmy Garoppolo's number. Sorry, not going to happen. Ronnie Bell has it now. All right. Nice little 55-minute show. Good stuff. Why don't everybody like the video? Subscribe to the channel. We're going to look at the 53-man roster projection for the 49ers defense next. Thanks for watching, but do hit that sub button right now. Seriously, there's a lot of you watching and probably haven't hit it. So hit that button as a thank you on the way out. I appreciate you, and everybody have a good Saturday morning. Take care.